3 veterans, 1 day, different outcomes. The 3 veterans were all in VF-41, one of them being myself. My name is Ernie Drew. I'm an octogenarian and a Vietnam veteran who served the US Navy. In April of '65, VF-41 needed an intelligence officer for their deployment aboard the carrier, Independence, and I became the Navy's solution to the squadron's need. The day I want to speak of is 17th of October, 1965. I was part of the pre-strike briefing team for a major strike being given by the intelligence officers in the Integrated Operational Intelligence Center, which we called the IOIC. The pilots were being briefed for a 10 o'clock launch of a major strike. 4 A4s were given a bombing mission to attack a fixed surface-to-air missile site northeast of Hanoi, which was the first time that one of these fixed sites came under attack. 4 F4s were assigned to bomb the Thai Nguyen Bridge north of Hanoi, but also to provide combat air patrol on egress. The vicinity of the bridge was heavily defended with anti-aircraft guns, which led to the shooting down of 3 of the F4s. One of the F4s was for my squadron and was observed crashing with 2 good parachutes. The pilot, my squadron mate Rod Mayer, was observed lying on the ground, still connected to his parachute. Rod did not survive the ejection, but that was not determined until many years later after all the POWs had returned home. The radar intercept officer, the guy in back, Dave Wheat, was quickly captured and became a prisoner of war. Of those who did, 40 years after, in 2005, there was a reunion for the officers that were in the squadron at the time we went to Vietnam. Of the 33, 25 attended the reunion. Of those who did not attend, 1 had passed away in an aircraft accident, 2 had died of natural causes, and Rod Mayer was killed in action. Dave Wheat, who was the guy in back, approached me and said, "I want to apologize for taking so long to do this debrief." After dinner, he told the squadron of his experiences, and this is my memory of his presentation. The target that day for us was the Thai Nguyen Bridge, about 25 miles northeast of Hanoi. Rod said, "We've been hit. I ejected, swung once under the canopy, and got caught in the tree, and the tree bent over, and I crashed to the ground. I unclicked the harness, and the tree went up with a parachute stuck in the branches, becoming a marker. I soon became a POW. I passed through the Hanoi Hilton. After a couple days, moved to a prison called the Zoo. I was placed in a room by myself, and for the first 9 months, I had no interactions with any Americans. Some of what happened in the time of being a POW are these 2 incidents. One point, I was taken from a room, made to sit on a concrete block, and told I had to write a biography. I said I would not write anything. Eventually, they hog-tied me, with arms crossed behind my back, put handcuffs on me, and tightened them until I thought they could not be any tighter, but they were able to get 1 more click out of it. He then described the pain as being unbearable, and after many hours, he eventually said that he would write. Showers were important. The only shower I could get was cold water. At one point, I was in a 4-man room in the zoo, and we were disciplined and not allowed to shower for 2 months. One day, I was told I would be able to take a shower. I told the guards that I would only take a shower if everyone in the room could take a shower. They returned me to the room, and they came back 15 minutes later, took me to another room, told me to take my pants down, lay on the floor, and I was struck 3 times with something that looked like a fan belt. Prior to the release of all the POWs, the B-52s were doing relentless bombing attacks. They would carpet bomb all across the country. When the carpet bombing stopped, all the POWs were loaded onto trucks from wherever they were and taken to the Hanoi Hilton. They were assigned cell blocks in the order of their shoot down. In a few days, the first airplane arrived to transport the seriously sick and injured POWs that have been shot down. And then Dave, having been shot down earlier in the war, was assigned to the second plane. When the second airplane arrived, he was driven to the release point. They were called forward one by one. An Air Force captain from the Freedom Flight was on the runway and gave each former POW a salute as they approached him. He was then escorted by 2 Air Force enlisted to the plane, up the ramp and onto the plane. It flew to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, and he was able to take his first hot shower in 7.5 years. Dave was ready to start the rest of his life. After my return from Vietnam in 1965, the general population negated the value of military service, but I had not. And it caused me to suppress the fact that I was a Vietnam veteran. It was the 1960s, and I was conflicted. I became a civilian but remained in the reserves. I eventually became a defense contractor and worked with people who were like-minded. When I retired at the age of 75, I was again set adrift from what I would consider to be my tribe. I had planned poorly for retirement, I had lost focus, and my family was concerned. I was unable or unwilling to read if it wasn't on a screen. I hadn't read anything that wasn't technical or intelligence in at least 25 years. However, during that time, I gained a better understanding of the theater, Trinity Rep being the driving force there. And I saw a conversation with Kurt Columbus, and Ty was being interviewed about how the use of theater in the humanities fit into the PCVI course, which I had never heard of at that point in time. I called Mark the next day, and over the next year and a half, the PCVI course, through its instructors, curriculum materials, and conversations with all the other students, many of whom are in this room, helped me focus and develop an appreciation for the humanities. I became an active participant, and yes, I started reading. Listening to the veterans of all the services allowed me to understand what it meant to be a veteran. I have told Mark, I consider myself an odd duck to some extent, in that most of the veteran stories and most of the conversations had to do with ground warfare. But I was a naval intelligence officer. I wasn't getting my hands dirty. I was in an air-conditioned space, and I had a different outlook of what was going on. So the 3 veterans that I was talking about at the beginning, Rod Mayer, Dave Wheat, and myself, where are they today? Rod Lewis Mayer, he was from Lewiston, Idaho. He's listed on the Vietnam Wall at panel 2E, line 125. His remains were never recovered. David Robert Wheat, Dearborn, Michigan, POW for 2,675 days. Commander USN, retired, currently lives in Duluth, Minnesota. And if anyone here has been through the Duluth International Airport, there's a statue of a POW hunched over with his hands handcuffed behind his back, and he was the model for that statue. And myself, I'm from Cranston, now living on Providence East Side, and I'm Captain, U.S. Navy Reserve, retired, and I am now proud to be a veteran, having known veterans like Rod Mayer and Dave Wheat and all of those who I've met at PCVI. Thank you.